You know, I wasn't planning to say any of this out loud, but when you spend 72 years swallowing your own stories, they start clawing their way up your throat. And if I'm going to speak, I'm going to speak the whole truth. So let me start exactly where it happened. I walked into my daughter's house that afternoon carrying nothing but a pie tin and a warm smile. I had driven 3 hours just to surprise her, because she'd sounded tired on the phone, like the world was weighing on her chest. I thought maybe showing up would remind her she wasn't alone. But the second I stepped inside, I could tell something was off. The air felt tight. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that grows teeth. And then he walked in. My son-in-law. The man my daughter swore up and down was perfect husband material. Well, perfect men don't exist, sweetheart. Only well-behaved monsters do. He didn't even look me in the eye. Just glanced at the pie in my hand and smirked. Next time call before coming over, he said. Some people actually have schedules. Some people. As if I was furniture he didn't order. I didn't answer. I just set the pie down on the counter and brushed the crumbs off my sleeve. He leaned against the fridge and gave me that little half laugh he does. The one he uses when he thinks he's the smartest man in the room. Also, he added, you really shouldn't meddle in our life so much. We're doing fine without outside interference. Interference. That's what he called me. The woman who raised his wife. The woman who held her at 6 pounds and 12 ounces and promised the world wouldn't hurt her. I looked at him long enough to make him uncomfortable. He shifted his weight like maybe he realized he'd crossed a line. But his pride didn't let him step back. He lifted his chin and said, you don't understand how things work here, okay? I run this house. I make the decisions. And I don't need. I cut him off without raising my voice. Don't finish that sentence, I told him. Because once you say it, you can't pull it back. But he did. Of course he did. I don't need some old woman coming in here acting like she knows better. Old woman. Not Mom. Not Mrs. Carter. Just old woman. And something inside me, something ancient and tired and sharp, clicked awake. He had no idea who he was talking to. He had no idea the kind of power he just spit in the face of. Not because of age, or wisdom, or motherhood, but because of what I really did. When I wasn't baking pies, or sending birthday cards, or pretending to be harmless. He had no idea that the person he just insulted was, all right, let me pick it up from exactly where I left off. He stood there in that spotless kitchen, arms folded, jaw tight, ego taller than the fridge behind him, and he truly believed he owned that space. Owned my daughter. Owned the air everyone breathed. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't flinch. Didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing even a flicker of hurt. Instead, I asked him one simple question. Does my daughter know you talk like this when I'm not around? He rolled his eyes. That boy has an Olympic-level eye roll, let me tell you. She knows I'm the one keeping this family together, he said. She knows who handles things. Honestly, you showing up like this just stresses her out. Maybe stop acting like you matter so much. Maybe stop acting like you matter so much. He didn't say it loudly. He didn't say it violently. But cruelty doesn't need to be loud. Just needs to be confident. And he was very confident. In the wrong direction. I leaned a little closer, not enough to threaten, just enough so he'd have to look at me. You really believe you run this house? He smirked. Absolutely. You handle everything? Everything. You're the boss here? He pressed his lips together the way men do when they're trying to look important. That's right. I let a very slow breath fill my chest. Because what I was about to say, well, I knew it would snap the bones of his pride clean in half. You might run this house, I told him. But you don't run the world outside it. He laughed. A loud, dismissive laugh, the kind people use when they think the fight is already won. What, are you going to ground me? Then he snorted. Lady, you don't have that kind of power. Lady. Not Mom. Not Mrs. Carter. Just lady. So I asked him, what time is your performance review tomorrow? And just like that, the color drained from his face. His laugh died halfway through. His shoulders dropped half an inch. His pupils tightened like camera shutters snapping toward danger. Because he knew. He finally knew. There was only one person on this planet who could have known about that upcoming review. The same person who had the authority to change it, postpone it, cancel it, or end his entire job on the spot. And that person was me. His old woman. His interference. His lady. I watched the realization hit him like a slow-moving earthquake, shaking him from the inside out. He blinked hard. What do you mean? I didn't blink back. You work for a corporation that doesn't announce who sits behind the final desk, I said. And you've had no idea all this time. He swallowed. His mouth opened a little, but nothing came out. So I finished the sentence for him. I'm not just your mother-in-law. I'm your final approver. Your highest-ranking evaluator. And the woman whose signature decides whether you're promoted or unemployed. His knees softened. His breath caught. And the kitchen suddenly felt very, very small. He didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. And 10 seconds is a long, long time when your entire life is collapsing quietly inside your chest. I watched it happen, the shift, the arrogance melting, the confidence draining, the realization setting like wet cement around his ankles. He finally whispered, You work for the company? I shook my head. No. I run the part of the company that runs you. His throat jumped. That little swallow a man does when he can feel fear and pride wrestling in the same place. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. But, I've never. They said the board never meets in person. They said executives don't. They don't, I told him. And that's why you never knew. He took one shaky step back, bumping into the counter like he forgot how a kitchen worked. Continued. You've been complaining for 6 months about the mysterious executive who reviews your behavior reports, your performance charts, your team complaints. I paused. You've been cursing that person, mocking them, calling them out of touch. And all this time that person was sitting at your dinner table during Thanksgiving. His lips parted. Nothing came out but air. He dragged his hands through his hair. You know that gesture men do when their brain overheats? Jesus. I had no idea. I nodded slowly. I know you didn't. And that's the problem. He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Not as someone's mother. Not as a grandmother. But as a woman who held more authority than any man in his circle ever had. He sank into the nearest chair. What did I do wrong? He asked, voice thin, trembling at the edges. I sat across from him. You didn't do anything wrong at work, I said. In fact, professionally, you're competent. You're organized. You're capable. He exhaled in relief. Then I finished. But capability means nothing without character. His relief shattered instantly. I leaned forward. You want to know your real mistake? It wasn't the numbers. It wasn't the late reports. It wasn't the missed memos. I tapped the table softly. It was the way you treat people when you think no one important is watching. His eyes widened. You belittle my daughter. You silence her opinions. You call her dramatic whenever she tries to speak up. You use your job title like a shield to hide your own insecurities. He looked away. And today, continued, you insulted a woman you thought was powerless. Silence. The heavy kind. The kind that presses down on the spine. He whispered, barely audible. What happens now? I folded my hands gently. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., you have a review meeting. And for the first time in your life, you'll be evaluated not by your numbers, but by your humanity. He blinked hard. And if I fail? I looked him straight in the eye. Then you'll learn what happens when the man who runs the house discovers he never ran anything at all. His breath trembled. He didn't sleep that night. I know because I could hear him pacing from the guest room. Slow, uneven footsteps across the hardwood floor. Like every step carried another fear he didn't know how to swallow. By morning, he looked like a man who'd aged 10 years in 10 hours. Dark circles under his eyes, shoulders stiff, mouth tight with dread. At 8:52 a.m., he stood in the living room holding his laptop like it was a bomb he wasn't trained to defuse. Should I join early? He asked. I didn't answer his question. Instead, I asked him, what do you think joining early will fix? Your performance? your attitude, your marriage. He flinched. When the clock hit 9 a.m. sharp, he clicked join meeting. And the moment my camera feed appeared on his screen, I watched the last bit of his pride fall away. He didn't hide his panic, didn't fake confidence, didn't try to charm his way out. He just stared at me like a man finally seeing the cliff he'd been walking on for years. I spoke first. I'm not here today to discuss your quarterly reports, I said. And I'm not here to talk about your team feedback, or task completion, or budget handling. His jaw tightened. I'm here, I continued, to talk about the man you become when you think no one above you is watching. He swallowed hard. I kept going. There's a reason this company chose me as your final evaluator. Not because of my experience, not because of my seniority, but because I can see character where others only see charisma. He lowered his gaze. And you, I said, have charisma, but you do not have character. He whispered. I can fix that. I shook my head. Character isn't a switch. It's the sum of every moment when you thought no one saw you. He looked at the screen again, eyes wet at the edges. And someone saw you, I said softly. My daughter. He closed his eyes. You think she doesn't tell me how you talk to her? How you dismiss her ideas? How you raise your voice just enough to scare her, but not enough to call it yelling? His breath hitched. You've built an ego so fragile it shatters whenever she shows strength. He whispered. I didn't know she told anyone. I cut him off. She didn't. I watched her shrink every holiday, every visit, every phone call. He pressed his lips together, fighting the truth. You wanted control, I said. But you never wanted partnership. You wanted obedience, not respect. He looked up, eyes wide, voice cracking. Tell me what to do. Please. I'll do anything. I leaned closer to the camera. This isn't about doing, I said. It's about becoming. And you can't become a better man while pretending you already are one. He exhaled, defeated. So what now? He asked. I paused. Long enough for him to feel the weight of what came next. Now, I said, you're going to tell my daughter the truth. Every word. Every flaw. Every insecurity that made you hurt her. He froze. And if I don't? I didn't raise my voice. Didn't threaten. Didn't even blink. You'll be fired by noon. His mouth went dry. And she'll finally understand the kind of man she married. His breath trembled. Fear, guilt, and the first glimmers of honesty began cracking through him. I'll talk to her, he murmured. No, I said. You'll confess to her. There's a difference. His hands shook. And then I ended the meeting. When the meeting ended, he didn't move for almost a full minute. Just stood there holding his laptop, breathing like the air had suddenly turned too heavy for his lungs. I walked past him without saying a single word. Not to pressure him. Not to comfort him. This part he had to walk through alone. My daughter was in the bedroom folding laundry, humming softly to herself. That little tune she uses when she's trying to make peace with a life that doesn't treat her gently. He knocked on the door frame. She looked up surprised. He never knocked. Not for anything. Can we talk? He asked, voice thin, cracking around the edges. She set the laundry down slowly. About what? He swallowed. I could hear it from the hallway. About us, he said. And about me. She blinked, waiting. He stepped inside like he was walking into a courtroom. I've been a terrible husband, he whispered. My daughter froze. I've been controlling, dismissive, cold. I've acted like my stress gives me permission to treat you however I want. Her breath caught. And the worst part, he added, is that I always told myself I was doing nothing wrong. She stared at him. Not angry, not yelling, just waiting for the truth to keep going. He dragged a trembling hand across his face. I insulted your mother today, he said. And not just as a slip of the tongue. I spoke to her the same way I speak to you when my ego gets loud. She looked down. That hurt her deep. She didn't deserve that, he said. And neither did you. Silence thickened the air. I've been trying so hard to feel powerful, he whispered, that I forgot power means nothing if the people closest to you feel small. Her eyes softened, but she didn't speak. He kept going, because he finally realized half confessions don't heal anything. There's something else. he said. Something I didn't know until today. He took a breath that sounded almost broken. Your mother. She's not just your mother. She's my final evaluator at work. My daughter's eyes widened. That review I have today? The one I've been panicking about for months? She's the one who signs off on it. She's the one who decides if I stay or go. And I insulted her in our own kitchen. My daughter covered her mouth. He shook his head slowly. I thought I ran this house, he said softly. But the truth is, I haven't been able to run myself. His voice cracked on the last word. I'm scared, he admitted. Not of being fired. Not of losing the job. But of losing you. My daughter's eyes filled, but still. She said nothing. He dropped to his knees. Not dramatically. Not for show. But the way a man kneels when his pride finally breaks open. I don't want to be this person anymore, he whispered. I don't want to be the man who hurts you. Or belittles you. Or treats your mother like she's disposable. He pressed a hand against his chest. I want to change. I need to change. But I don't know how to start. She finally spoke. Soft, quiet, trembling. You start, she said. By telling the truth before someone has to drag it out of you. He nodded, tears touching the edges of his eyes. And you keep going, she added. By being honest even when no one is watching. He covered his face with his hands. Because he knew exactly what she meant. He had lived his whole life performing morality. But never practicing it. When he finally looked up, she wasn't angry. She wasn't relieved. She was simply tired. But there was something else there too. The tiniest spark of hope. I'll do better, he whispered. I'll become better. I promise. She held his gaze long enough to let him know promises weren't enough. But maybe, just maybe, effort could be. He stood slowly. And when he walked out of the room, he wasn't the same man who had walked in. He looked at me in the hallway, not with fear, not with resentment, but with something closer to humility. I told her, he said quietly. I nodded. Good, I answered. Now comes the part you've never had to face before. He swallowed. So I stood there on that quiet Georgia porch, the evening breeze brushing against my sleeves, and I looked him straight in the eye. I didn't raise my voice, didn't curse, didn't preach. I just said what needed to be said. You spent all this time thinking power comes from titles, but real power comes from how you treat people. And you failed that test long before you ever learned my name. He didn't have a comeback. Not a single word. His mouth opened, then closed like a fish desperate for air but not finding any. For the first time since I'd met him, he wasn't arrogant. He wasn't smug. He was just a man who'd finally realized he'd been standing on the wrong side of the truth. He whispered, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I nodded. You didn't care to know. He sank down on the porch step. Hands folded, shoulders sagged. I don't want to lose her. I don't want to lose this family. You're not losing anything, I told him. But you're going to earn it this time. Slowly. Carefully. Day by day. You're going to show her who you are when no one's watching. That's the real test. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I will. I swear. And I knew he meant it, not because he said it, but because the pride was gone. Completely gone. Sometimes people don't change because they're humbled. They change because they finally see themselves clearly for the first time. A week passed. Then 2. Then 3. And every day something shifted. He started coming over without being asked. Fixing the porch light. Mowing the yard. Washing the dishes after dinner. Not to impress me, but to rebuild something he'd nearly destroyed. My daughter, cautious as ever, watched. Quiet. Observing. Not letting him charm his way back like he always tried to. But something thawed in her too. You can't stay frozen forever when someone is genuinely trying. Months later she came to me. Mom, she said softly. I see the man I married again. I smiled. Good. Then hold him to the standard he finally learned. And just a few nights ago at our Sunday dinner he cleared his throat, stood up from the table, and looked at me the way a man looks at someone he finally understands. I want to say thank you, he said, for telling me the truth. For not treating me like the fool I acted like. And for giving me a chance to be better. I didn't need the apology. I didn't need the speech. but I appreciated it. I raised my glass, iced tea, nothing fancy, and said, "Let this be the last day you ever forget who you really answer to." He nodded. "Yes, ma'am." And he knew I wasn't talking about me. I was talking about character, integrity, responsibility, the things no company can fire you from, but life certainly can. So that's how it happened. How the man who once insulted me discovered, within minutes, who his real boss truly was. Not the CEO, not the job, not the paycheck, his own damn conscience. And believe me, that's the one boss you can never escape.